Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell everybody a little bit about you, and then we'll kind of go from there?
Yes, absolutely. My name's Grant Harting. I'm a licensed pharmacist in 3 states. That's my new catchphrase, apparently. And what I do is I make videos about where you can find great deals on medication. And I test a lot of the medication. I take a lot of them myself to see how they affect me. Most of which, at least lately, has come from the Dollar Tree. And I try to educate people on how to make good decisions whenever they're purchasing medication, because it is very difficult. I didn't actually even realize this until I started making these videos, how difficult it can be for somebody who doesn't have, the education specifically in medicine. And I like to be that kind of
middle ground.
What made you realize that there was a need for you to go into some of these stores and do that?
Well, working as a pharmacist for several years, like as a traditional sense, I had people come up to the counter all the time and ask me questions, and they would want my recommendation for things. And in the back of my mind, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, you can't figure this out on your own. Yeah. But it is obviously very difficult for them to make a decision because the packaging, it's meant to direct your attention and your eyesight. It's not meant to educate. And right. A couple of years after I'm a consultant now, back whenever I was a retail pharmacist, a couple of years after that, I made one TikTok video, and I was like, you know what? I bet a lot of people don't know that the medication in Dollar Tree is probably the best deal around, at least for some of these. And it got like 10,000 views or something like that. And that was just on my old phone with my earbuds in, and I wasn't really trying to make good content. I was like, well,
that's the way it always goes. It's just something organic.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, well, if that did as well as it did, what if I actually put effort into this? And then it's only been like 3 months actually, and the channel just exploded after I actually put in effort into it.
Well, in like the very first video I saw of yours, you were doing stool softeners, and you like poked into one and was like, okay, this is what's inside. And you said it was soap. And I was just like, so that's all that, like, we've had those in the cabinet for forever, and it's garbage. It's literal garbage. So I was just like, okay, so what happens if you actually need this stuff? And then I started doing a deep dive into your stuff, and I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah, that soap video, I think it's like 2.1 million views or something like that right now.
Wow.
Yeah, it was nuts. All those little tips and tricks. And I have a really, really fun one. I might wait till next month to do this next one. It's in the similar line of like, I bet you didn't know that this medication you were taking is actually this. It's a very, very unique one. I'm really excited about that one. It's going to do just as well.
So whenever you were in a retail pharmacy, let's kind of start with that. What is it like on the day-to-day? What do you end up putting up with? Why is it that, people come in so frustrated all the time because of wait times or the prescription didn't get there from the doctor? What is the struggle that you're actually dealing with?
Well, it's the worst experience of my life. I actually hated my life whenever I was a retail pharmacist. So much so that I rarely even talk about it. In fact, I wrote a book about it. It's called How to Escape Retail Pharmacy Hell. And it did very well. I have over 1,000 copies in circulation right now. But
congratulations.
Thank you. The worst part about it, first of all, it's so difficult to explain unless you've actually been there working. Like the pharmacy technicians that are listening right now, they get it. Once you're back there and you experience that horrible working environment, then you get it. But as simple as I can make it right now, the corporate pharmacy chain overlords want one thing, and that's vaccines typically. Mm-hmm. The patient wants another thing. They want their medication quickly. And the State Board of Pharmacy, and perhaps you could even argue that the pharmacy staff want another thing, and that's to be completely legal and follow all the rules and do everything by the book. And all three of these things are working against each other. They're pulling you in all three different directions. That's as simple as I can make it. And we're caught in the middle, and we just want to do the right thing. We want to get
Since COVID, have you noticed a huge change in? Because I have with the pharmacies.
I haven't worked in a pharmacy since before COVID, but I'm still involved. I have lots of pharmacy friends, and I think most of them said that during COVID, like it was like this Zen like state, and we're like all in this together, baby. And then that lasted for like a week, and then like everything was like 10
Then all
times
hell
worse.
broke loose. Yeah, then all hell broke loose.
Yeah, yeah.
So since COVID too, I feel like there have been a lot of regulations, and there's all the stuff with the opiate epidemic and just kind of everything going on where at least getting my prescriptions, I feel like a lot of it has changed. What are some of the struggles like whenever you go in? There's always like red flags, right, with people. What are some of the struggles if someone can't get their prescription? Is it normally doctors are not sending the stuff in properly? Is it like I know there are databases,
Prior authorization.
Yeah, like what's the main things that kind of block people from getting their stuff?
Geez, the main thing, I don't even know because there's so many. Like, I mean,
Right.
you could, I don't know if you mentioned this regulation, like state and federal regulation is probably one of the biggest culprits, which is ironic because you think that they'd be there to help you, but no. There's so many stipulations around every single thing you can think of. My goodness.
Like even the timing, like some medications, I know they will only dispense it every 28 days.
Right.
Yeah. And that also gets, okay, here's a complicated thing. This isn't really what you asked, but it kind of reminded me of it. There's federal law,
Right.
which is stupid most of the time. State law, which is even stupider depending on the state. And then there's store policy. And then there's you could even argue that there's some like professional judgment that depends on who's working that day.
Absolutely.
So there's so many different factors. And it's just so difficult to navigate all of that. But what was your original question? What are some of the, or what was the biggest limiting?
Yeah, what are the big things that block people? Like if you have like maybe a certain, I don't know what you would call it, a code on your account, what would it be that makes it you can no longer get prescriptions and you're going to be dealing with insurance companies, you're going to be dealing with the doctors, just going through the loops trying to get your prescriptions?
I'd say probably the most common issue it has to do with insurance.
Prior authorizations.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that falls onto the doctors because they're short staffed, they don't get it done.
Yeah.
And it's a trickle effect, right?
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up. And a lot of times the staff doesn't know what they're doing because these insurance companies, they have language that is very, very specific to pharmacy. And you have
Right.
somebody at a doctor's office who, I mean, it's just unreasonable to expect them to know what some of these things mean. And a lot of prior authorizations go unapproved because the person filling it out doesn't have the skills and the access to the information that they need to get it done.
Right. Sometimes the wording has to be specific, correct?
does,
And if it's not approved.
It does. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to help doctors' offices and patients get those things approved. I'll tell you a very quick story. One of my viewers reached out to me and they had a medication for their daughter. It was for headaches and it's very, very expensive. And their daughter was 17. And this medication was approved for people 18 and older. And the doctor prescribed it anyway. And of course it was denied by the insurance company. And I was like, I don't really know if you can really do anything about that because I don't know if the doctor should have even prescribed that to begin with. So I called my friend who is a pharmacist at a very well-known insurance company in the United States. And I told him the situation. He's like, just try again. If you get somebody from the insurance company like me, I'm speaking from perspective of my friend, myself, I would have approved it if they were like, 17 and a half and they've shown me that this works. And I actually didn't have any contact with that mother. It just so happened a couple weeks later, she reached out to me again. She said, we got it approved. I had the doctor try again. And on the second attempt, they got it approved. People don't know these things. How many medications go unused because, someone, like you mentioned, like someone forgot to cross a T or dot an I or something like
Right.
that.
I'm actually dealing with that a lot myself. And I talked to my own insurance company and the advocate told me it needs to be worded a specific way. And if they don't write that the same way the insurance company wants it, it's not getting approved, period.
Reach out to me after we're done here. I want to take a look at your situation.
Absolutely. I would love to.
Yeah.
We have random stuff like that all over the place because we help a lot of people that are like in recovery or just a million different things, chronic pain patients, all types of stuff. And just pharmacies are hell for a lot of people.
They are.
Yeah.
Right. And like with the pharmacies, a lot of these meds, what about the medication shortages? Like this is a continual thing. And I'm sure that you have seen, like, so when there's a shortage, like what's the best next option as a pharmacist.
Yeah.
To get it approved.
Yeah, that's it's incredibly frustrating. And a lot of the times especially in the retail setting, like whenever you walk into a traditional pharmacy, the pharmacist really doesn't have as much communication with the doctor as they should. If there was like a way that we could actually like really work back and forth quickly, we could get so many more meds to people. We would eliminate a lot of headache. It's actually what I do right now in my current job. Like the doctors will call me, like I'm on the phone with the doctors. And I mean, it takes 5-10 minutes, if that, to switch from something that's a high cost med to a typically better and cheaper medication. Because if there's one thing I want you guys to know here today, the cost of a med does not correlate to its efficacy. It is not a bang for your buck scenario.
Right.
And that's another thing that people don't understand. So that's kind of another part of my channel as well.
What do you feel about like compounded meds? Do you think that that's a way to go sometimes versus
for the
like,
patient? I mean,
for some of like the Ozempic and stuff. I know a lot of people started because of the shortage, utilizing compound pharmacies, but some of those pharmacies you can't trust, right?
Right.
Yeah, there's a couple of sketch scenarios. Right. I'm sure you've seen. There's a lot of fraud. And
I've seen it. I've seen it with a lot of friends. Yeah, with the weight loss meds.
I don't know. I think generally speaking, I'd trust them and I'd feel confident with them. But yeah, I do know that there's quite a few scenarios where people got nailed for fraud and other things in compounding world. I would say your best bet is to not use that. That would be like a second or third choice.
Right.
Regardless, I'm pretty certain it's going to be more expensive to use a compounding pharmacy.
Whenever you do get all these shortages and everything, how difficult is it to actually get everything switched? Especially now, it has to be a little bit harder because, like, if you go to, I don't want to say the name, some of the more prominent pharmacies, you can't even talk to a pharmacist. The doctor can't talk to a pharmacist. Like nobody can do anything. No one can talk to a real person. So how hard is it to actually get these things switched? And is that where you come in and you can actually take over for the doctor?
Unfortunately, no. And that's actually something I wish that we would change in this country. Like pharmacists are definitely qualified to just make these decisions on our own without having to communicate with a doctor's office that are, and from our perspective, very simple. So like if there's a med that's a drug shortage, I have to call and ask basically their assistant, can I change this? And that 100 times out of 100, they'll say yes, but I can't legally, depending on my state, I cannot legally make that change on my own volition. It's kind of stupid. But yeah, it's very difficult because going back to what I said earlier, we really don't have the best communication, I don't think, between pharmacies and doctors' offices. So whenever there is any issue, whether it be a out of stock or drug shortage issue or anything, I mean, it's just so difficult to really get them to acknowledge you or to get a hold of you and vice versa.
How do you fix this? Like, is there a way this could work where pharmacies could actually make the decision somewhat without it being like too overpowering in some way or anything like that?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it would take a lot of work, but like my vision for the future is like a completely integrated health system where all the pharmacies and doctors have access to it. A way to message doctors that's, as life it doesn't intrude on their life, like some sort of
like time effective, something that's time effective, cost effective, and works for everyone to get the job done.
Yep.
Exactly. And I mean, that can be done. I mean, other countries have similar setups from what I understand. Mm-hmm. Instead of talking to somebody and then they don't really know what they're doing, and they won't let you talk to the doctor, and then the doctor calls back and they can't even get through to the pharmacist.
I know a lot of chronic pain patients struggle, and a lot of times even people that have had post-op pain can't get their meds filled sometimes because they're on other scripts. Does that happen a lot?
Yeah, all the time. It's that's mostly that. Whenever we talk about pain meds specifically, that's mostly the DEA causing that issue.
Right.
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. I had a DEA agent come to my pharmacy one time, and he asked me to show him a medication that does not exist. And I'm like, wow, okay, so this is the guy.
Wow.
This is the organization that's handing out fines. And that's not really the most, I don't have a whole lot of confidence there.
Right, yeah.
Does the DEA often show up to pharmacies? Like they could just show up unannounced?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure exactly off the top of my head, but I think it's once per year. They actually do. Yeah, like it's on a.
And is it like an undercover like situation, or they just walk in there and they're like, I need to come through this pharmacy?
No, it's not undercover. It's generally a pretty cordial thing, and they just kind of poke around and look to make sure that all your numbers are correct, and sometimes ask you for meds that don't exist apparently. But
wow,
they just come
that's so crazy.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing I'm trying to figure out, obviously the DEA getting in the mix, they don't really know a lot about a lot of prescriptions and the medical world in general. So there's a lot of misinformation that goes out from them and a whole bunch of issues. Is it really the insurance companies that are the problem in the U.S., or is it like the lobbyists who aren't pushing to get prescription prices down, and it's the reason why insurance companies won't cover certain things, because the lobbyists are not they aren't arguing for prices like they do in other countries. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it's all the insurance. I feel like it goes on a higher level even.
Yeah, I mean, what you're getting into is probably one of the most complex fields ever. I mean, drug pricing is something that I talk about a lot being so difficult because you have to have the financial and the clinical background to understand it, and there's just not many people who do.
Right.
I would say, yeah, I mean, a lot of our meds are a lot higher in this country, but a lot of them are cheaper too. People often forget that. I was literally just in Canada like 4 days. No, it was actually 2 days ago, I think. And our over-the-counter meds, by and large, are better and cheaper in the United States.
Really?
Yeah, always.
I've always heard the opposite, so that's kind of fascinating.
I know, that is a myth.
Right.
Well, it's not completely a myth, but there's a lot of... people just like to assume that we're so horrible here, but there's so many great things in the United States with our drugs and our drug pricing. I'll give you an example. Yeah, it's expensive, but Eliquis, that is an amazing drug that has saved so many people. It's for atrial fibrillation and DVTs and stuff. That has saved so many people. And it's like a product of science fiction, really, a couple years ago. And that medication exists today because we pay so much for it. That research and development cost, we sort of subsidize that for the rest of the world. But without the United States, Eliquis probably wouldn't exist. And there's a lot of other drugs that save so many people that wouldn't even exist without us. So yeah, it is expensive a lot of the time. And there are even more horrible examples of meds that shouldn't exist and are very, very expensive. But we do a lot of good. I do
what
want
do
to make
you
that
think
clear.
about gabapentin being overprescribed a lot for everything?
I don't really have a whole lot of opinion about gabapentin. One of the pharmacists I work with hates it. He thinks it doesn't really do anything, and causes more danger than good. And I actually really respect that guy, so I kind of respect his opinion on that as well. I don't know. I feel like there's another med. Have you ever heard of Lyrica? Do you know what Lyrica is?
Yes.
I actually was prescribed that. Yeah.
Like past tense, like you're not taking it anymore?
So I tried it like a month ago, and I didn't like the way it made me feel, so I instantly stopped it.
No, okay. Well, I was about to say Lyrica is like the newer gabapentin. It's kind of supposedly better, but I guess it didn't really work for you too well. But
It was the side effects for me.
Side effects, yeah. I really don't know. I feel like gabapentin may get prescribed sometimes because it's, at least in my state, it's not a controlled substance.
Right.
Some states it is. And that kind of makes prescribers feel more confident and, comfortable prescribing it. But
Right.
I really
And
don't
the same thing I see with tramadol.
Yeah.
Now, I just made a video about tramadol. I used to abuse tramadol and I had seizures.
Yeah.
I didn't know about serotonin
Uh-huh.
syndrome. So a lot of people in my video were commenting like, that's because it lowers the seizure threshold. I never knew that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's a max of, I think, 400 milligram per day for tramadol.
So many people in my video said that they had seizures on that medicine.
Mm-hmm. And whenever I'm working at my real job, if I see somebody that has seizure disorder and they have tramadol, I tell the doctor to stop it.
Right. So I was falsely diagnosed with epilepsy because of my benzos and stuff like that. It presented as epilepsy, but it was because of that medication.
Wow.
And there are a lot of things like, I don't know, like that. Obviously, everything has side effects, right? So there's only so much you can do. The thing we were trying to get at with the gabapentin was there's a lot of off-label prescribing, which isn't necessarily always a bad thing, but I feel like it's not scrutinized as much as it could be, and that's what leads to, like, gabapentins are given out to everybody, and they're horrible to get off of. So it's just one of those things. There's a lot of leeway and a lot of like give and take that could be done that's just not there. And then whenever you do get some of the side effects from these drugs, then you get another drug to help with the side effect, and it turns into
It's a trickle effect.
Yeah.
You gotta have one to treat the other thing that the other one caused, and it just kind of snowballs. Yeah.
What about like symptoms from medicines? Do you get into that a lot? Like a lot of medicines cause dry mouth, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Like what helps best for some of those things?
Well, where I work right now, I actually see that pretty often because we use a lot of meds that do cause dry mouth. But I mean, we typically recommend like a artificial saliva spray.
Biotine?
Yeah, biotine, yeah.
Yes, that's what I used to use.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have that issue because the medications do cause dry mouth. And then, dry mouth causes teeth issues and it kind of trickles down to other issues for people.
Exactly. Yes, you're definitely right.
So we want to get into more of the stuff that you do content-wise. We just wanted to get your opinion on a couple of things. So obviously you focus more on the medications that you can go into Dollar Tree or whatever to get. What are some of like the surprisingly crazy ones that are awesome and nobody knows about them?
My favorite is benzocaine 20% gel. I actually have some right here, I think. But at the Dollar Tree, this is only $1.25.
Right.
And this is like $9 at CVS or whatever. This is my all-time favorite. I talk
love
about it all
it.
the time in my videos because I get, cuts in my mouth every once in a while that I use. Let's see, what are some of the other goated ones from Dollar Tree? I'm a big
What
fan
about the
of
arthritis cream? Like I see a lot of arthritis creams and stuff like that for your back and stuff.
I went through this. I really didn't have a whole lot of success with them. The only thing I really kind of enjoyed along those lines is the lidocaine patch that they have at Dollar Tree. It's a 4% lidocaine patch. That seemed to help a little bit. But a lot of those topicals, they're not really too helpful in my opinion.
That's what I was going to say. I don't know of many topicals that I've ever had work because I had, I can't remember what it was. It was something, and I had to take a cream or whatever, use a shit ton of it, and it never worked. And then once I started taking the pills, the actual medication for it, it was fine. So I don't know if it's just me and my body doesn't take them in right, but I've never had a topical that's really been great.
No, it's not just you. I spoke about this a little bit in a somewhat recent video. Your skin is specifically designed not to let things in. Think about it. Like what is, if you're walking out in the world, like you're going to get chemicals on your skin, and it's specifically made so that it doesn't do that. So it takes a lot of effort, and not every chemical can actually be absorbed through the skin.
Sure.
Some can, some can't, like scopolamine, fentanyl. Even
like fentanyl, they had to do millions and millions of dollars of research to figure out how to actually make it get through the skin.
Oh, yeah. For your viewers who maybe don't know, the fentanyl patch is actually that's a marvel of pharmaceutics, really. Like, it's really amazing. It's a patch, but like the one side of it has like way more fentanyl than you actually need. Mm-hmm. And because of that, it pushes it through the membrane of the patch and then through the membrane of your skin. And that's how it gets into your body.
Mm-hmm. I used to be prescribed those years ago, and unfortunately, that was part of my addiction.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Stuff like that. I mean, there's, I can't remember what the other one. There was another pain patch that they used to have like way back, like 20 years ago. And I just remember a lot of people, it was having it was working, but they were getting really nauseous and stuff. And I kind of wondered if it was because it was almost too much. So you ended up because that's a common side effect of using too much of an opiate.
But it's in micrograms, right? So it's a lot smaller.
Yeah,
correct?
Fentanyl is, yeah.
Yeah,
fentanyl's microgram.
But yeah, I liked with your content. You had a one recently where it was like talking about Tylenol and just basic pain relievers. And then you had the actual just generic medication, and then like maximum strength, super gel, whatever. And it was all the same thing. It was completely garbage. And it's like the packaging and delivery method of like all these things half the time doesn't matter. And it's all just to hike up the price.
You're exactly right. Going back to what I said earlier, like these packages, they're designed to get your attention. They're not designed to actually educate you and tell you how to use it and what to use it for. I mean, all that information's on there, but it's very small and it's on the back, and nobody ever really looks at it because there's this bright capsule being opened and sprinkled out, and there's a clock, and it's like, they put all these things to grab your attention. And
as a mom, I wanted to talk about melatonin, because I know that a lot of parents use melatonin, and that's an over-the-counter medication. Mm-hmm. Is there too much? Like, as a mother, how do you know how to dose that, or as a parent?
I actually really don't know off the top of my head for kiddos, but for adults, it's 5 milligram once per night. And no, you can't overuse it. Everybody keeps saying that in my comments. I don't know why.
So you don't build like a tolerance to it or anything?
No.
Okay.
I take it every
I always
night.
wondered that. My kids take it, and sometimes I feel like it just doesn't even work.
Well, it's certainly not the most
effective.
crazy. Yeah.
Right.
But you have to be consistent with it. A lot of people don't know that too. It takes a good week, really, of consistent, like I'm talking like the same time every night, like not even just the same night, or just not even just the same day every night. You have to take it at the same time, because you want your body to get used to feeling that and thinking, okay, now it's time for bed. But yeah.
And also, don't they say that you have to take it during like the nighttime when the sun's down? I've heard that.
Yeah, you do. Yep.
Okay. A lot of people don't know that, though.
Yeah,
it's weird, some of these things with meds that people just don't research.
Exactly.
You had, I think it was Dollar Tree had some like melatonin gummies. I don't remember if I was able to finish that video. Did they work? Like they were decently cheap, and you took like 2 of them. And
yeah, it worked. Price per dose was probably not what I would want to see. I think it's better just buy a bottle of melatonin. But yeah, it worked. I mean, it was melatonin. It was just in a gummy. That's all.
And I don't know, I haven't really used a ton of gummies of different varieties. Do you feel like the administration, like the way it actually absorbs and hits you, is generally the same for gummies as capsules, as everything else?
Yeah, I mean, with only a few very rare exceptions, meds are absorbed in the intestine after it passes through the stomach. It doesn't matter if it dissolves by the time it gets to the intestine. then the medication will be absorbed. So these rapid releases, the gummies, the tablet, it doesn't matter. It's going to be in the stomach long enough to dissolve.
That's crazy though. So rapid release and anything like that. How does it work for things that are meant to be extended release? Does it just dissolve slower so it goes into the intestines slower type of thing?
There's several different extended release methods.
Sure.
And actually, that's probably one of the most interesting things about pharmaceutics, because we were talking about the patch earlier, and I was like, oh my gosh, fentanyl is like a modern marvel. Like the amount of engineering it took to make it that. A lot of these extended releases are similar. So on the less complicated end, there's something called metoprolol. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that. It's for blood pressure. And there's metoprolol succinate. And what that does is once it dissolves in the stomach, the metoprolol molecule kind of pulls apart slowly from the succinate molecule, and then it gets absorbed. And that's made specifically so that it kind of takes a while to happen. But there's other things like, I think there's like a nifedipine extended release thing that it's a pill. It's a little circular pill, and it has a hole drilled in the top. You can actually see it if you look at the tablet.
Really?
And at the bottom, there's a pump. I'm not even kidding. And when you take it, the liquid from your stomach and also in the intestine a little bit swells this pump, and it pushes the medication through the hole at a precise rate that these engineers figured out based on the size of the hole, the size of the molecule, the pump that's in there. And that's how it's extended release.
That's so crazy. Like, wow. How do you come up with crazy. That?
Some of these things that these guys think of are just, I mean,
genius.
Like science fiction, you'd think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it depends on the drug, basically, is your answer to that.
Right. Sure.
What about capsules? I have an issue swallowing. I feel like when a pill comes in a capsule form, my body just doesn't like it. I feel like it gets caught in my throat. Do you hear people say that?
Kind of. Everybody seems to have their own opinion on whether capsules or tablets are easier to swallow. And I hate that because so many times physicians or their assistant or whatever, they'll think, oh, capsule, that's easier to swallow, so I'll pick that one from my little drop down. And it ends up being 10 times more expensive than the tablet.
Wow.
And making that assumption is actually pretty dangerous sometimes. But to your question, I mean, it just depends on the person, really. I would typically reach for a tablet myself, but
me too. I asked my doctor, like with certain meds, if she could just put it back to the pill form instead of a capsule, because I just don't tolerate them well.
So I don't want to switch up what we're talking about too much, but this was actually one of the reasons I wanted to talk about supplements. There are a whole bunch of supplements, and I remember a few years back I was reading like a study saying that some of the more popular like men's one-a-day tablets that you can take, they were basically useless because they weren't dissolving properly, so you never actually got the nutrients from them. What are some of the better, I guess, like delivery methods, and are there some that just have been shown not to work or anything like that?
Well, as far as the delivery method goes, it shouldn't matter. And I don't know which supplement you're talking about there specifically, but like it would be, I think, kind of difficult to make something that wouldn't dissolve. I don't know what their issue was there. I guess some of the nutrients just weren't being absorbed, maybe. So I mean, I can't really say because the delivery method shouldn't really matter.
Sure.
I'm not really too sure what that one company was doing wrong there.
For some reason, I keep thinking Century, but that's not it. But it was whenever that was kind of discovered, there were multiple different types that were like that. And this may have been, I don't know, this was a while back, but it was like a whole bunch of stuff. Just basically, it could have been a marketing ploy. And so it was like, oh, these companies don't work and these ones do, so you should buy our product. So maybe that was actually what it was, and it was just all bad information. But yeah.
Probably. A supplement world is notorious for being pretty sketch with all that.
Is it really?
Oh yeah, there's tons of just like junk out there.
Can you overdose on supplements? Can you take too much and have toxicity in like the liver? What happens?
Probs. I think it would depend on the supplement. Off the top of my head, I mean, I don't really know of anything off the top of my head, but I would not be surprised at all. I mean, I'm sure you definitely could.
Too much of anything could be potentially dangerous.
Right, yeah.
Are there any big supplements or anything like that people just take like crazy and there is a more dangerous aspect to it? Like if you took too much of this one thing, it would be absolutely crazy and it needs to be monitored more?
Actually, somebody said something in the chat there really good. Too much magnesium can affect your heart. Yeah, they're absolutely right. Magnesium and sodium, I mean, that's regulated in the heart, or I mean, it's used in the heart, and that definitely could. I mean, sodium. I mean, that's used sometimes for to put someone to end them. I mean, there's none off the top of my head that I'm like a huge like advocate for not taking. There's for the most part, what you're going to get with supplements just really isn't a whole lot of anything, and it's not going to be bad. It's not going to be good. It's just there's really not a whole lot. I mean, it's not going to be doing a whole lot no matter what.
What about TikTok Shop? Have you seen certain things, or have you played around with some of the medications or supplements that they're trying to push on there?
I mean, I should definitely get some and take a look at it.
Yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of, I mean, there are all types of sketchy items on TikTok Shop. So there's supplements that's going in your body. There's got to be some. What are some of the more beneficial supplements to take then? Because I mean, at least from what you just said, there's not a ton that it's actually going to change unless you're really needing like certain amounts of iron or something like that. I can see that being helpful.
Yeah, exactly. Typically, whenever I talk about supplements, I talk about what you're trying to treat or what you're trying to cure. As far as like the whole like overall health stuff thing, I mean, it's not really my biggest thing that I'm too interested in. There's a lot of other pharmacists who are interested in all that stuff. You know, they'll recommend this vitamin, that probiotic, and all this other stuff. For me,
do you recommend things for like anxiety? Like when people have anxiety, is there like a good go-to like kava or something natural?
Honestly, over-the-counter supplement, not really. I mean, there's like lavender and there's valerian, you know. But man, anxiety just as a whole is very, very difficult to treat. It doesn't matter if you're using supplements or actual, you know, prescribed medications. It just honestly really sucks. Like it's
right. It's complex. There's so many things to it.
Exactly. Yeah. Best thing is actually cognitive behavioral therapy.
That's what I was just about to say. Therapy has been tremendous way to help people with anxiety, I think, because they don't have the coping mechanisms.
Maybe that's what I need. I just need to do therapy because it's weird because I don't really get anxiety. I'm comfortable talking to people. It's just some way my body reacts. Like I just get hot and uncomfortable, but I don't have a problem actually talking to people. And I don't know. It's strange.
Yeah, I mean, I most questions I get asked about are migraines and anxiety, and they're just so difficult to treat, unfortunately.
Right.
Is there any go-to that you felt like was really, really effective for more people with anxiety or migraines or anything like that? Like just absolute miracles, it was working every time?
No. It seems like every person's different.
Sure.
Yeah. That's what makes it so tough too. I wish that, you know, doctors and everybody, we had like a go-to.
What about with certain medications? I know the pharmacist or the doctor will say you have to take that with something to eat.
Mm-hmm.
What is really the reasoning behind that? Like, does it metabolize in the liver differently?
Okay, well, there's sometimes there's a concern with gastric emptying because, like, if you eat, you know, that's going to change how quickly it gets to your stomach, which may or may not matter. Let me think here. I'm thinking of one med in particular that I know that you absolutely have to eat with it. And I'm gonna be honest, I really don't know off the top of my head why. Oh wait, okay. I think it's because the levels that get absorbed are going to vary greatly. So they want you to be consistent, and they want you to take something with it just to be consistent. Actually,
What type of medication is that?
It's an antipsychotic, Latuda.
Okay.
That's what it's
Okay.
called.
Oh, I've been on that before. That's why I'm saying a lot of the psych meds, they tell you like you have to eat something with this. And I know with like some of them, I get super nauseous with meds.
Yeah, that one actually matters. Like they have it down. Like they tell you, I think it's like 400 calories or something like that. Like
Right.
They know exactly how much you have to eat.
Yeah, I was prescribed that for a very long time, and they were very specific about you have to eat with this or it's not going to work.
I didn't know that was a thing where they
It
got
is.
that specific with the calories. Because like usually if a medication says that, I might eat like a banana or something.
Right.
Like that's
Yeah.
so. That's are a lot of them like that where it is more specific, or is it really just certain ones?
Where specific, probably just certain ones. I feel like for the most part, it actually really doesn't matter across the board. But yeah, there is a couple here and there where it does matter if you take with food, and then even fewer where yes, they specify how many calories. Yeah.
I wanted to get into some of like the worst over-the-counter medications that you can get. You've done a lot of ones where it's like too expensive or anything like that, and it can be that kind of category. But what are some of the ones that are like everybody should avoid?
There's this thing called a psyllium. It's for like the flu, but it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything at all. It's nonsense, garbage, junko, and I mean it's been sold in pharmacies for like ever.
How do they get away with selling something that literally doesn't work and like a pharmacist knows that?
I think in the case of a psyllium, I don't even know if I'm saying it right. That's how little attention I give this thing. It's technically a supplement. You know, it's not a medication. So therefore, you don't have to prove efficacy of a supplement.
That's why people have to be very cautious, right?
Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of actual meds too that don't do anything, and they're still allowed to be sold just because they've been on the market since the dawn of time. And I mean, they kind of get grandfathered in, basically.
That's crazy, though. Are there? What was it that we were talking about? It was a few weeks ago. I think it was the Addies. Like whenever there was a shortage of Adderall, people were getting their prescription and it wasn't like they would get home and take it and it wasn't doing anything, or they would get like a drug test afterward and they would be negative for Addies. There has to be a certain amount of a medication in the medication. So how does something like that happen?
I struggle to believe that's true. Adderall? I mean, that's like a highly, highly regulated med.
A lot of people, there are so many people, look it up on, there are so many people saying that their kids even noticed a difference, that the medication wasn't as effective.
Yeah.
I've even talked to my children's psychiatrist and she said that she's heard that.
Well, I don't know, because I mean, if what we're alluding to here is that a batch or several batches of a medication didn't have
The potency.
or a lesser amount, I mean, that's super illegal. I mean,
Right.
that would be like detrimental to whatever company's doing that. Like they would never exist again. I
Like
feel like
my son even said that he was on Focalin for a while and he's like, I know people build a tolerance too as well, but there was clearly people saying that it was not working as well.
The thing that was getting me was there was somebody that I was talking to whenever that happened that one, they were going through withdrawal from it, so it was getting really bad because the shortage happened so long. But they got their Addies finally, went to the doctor like a couple of days later, and whenever they did their P test, it said there was nothing in there. So the doctor was literally about to kick them out of their program.
Wow.
They took the Addies in there, took them in front of the doctor like, I am taking these, and it was still negative, and that was like a whole thing. So I was just curious if you had ever heard of stuff like that before.
No, this is the first I'm hearing of that. That's super illegal if they're not putting it in the pill.
Well, and I think it only happened for like, I don't know, a month maybe. It wasn't crazy.
Really?
Yeah.
Right. There was a lot of videos. I remember that. It was a few months ago when people were saying that. Even Tanya's saying her boys were going through that in the comments.
Because there has to be, whenever you make a medication, you probably know more specific numbers, but doesn't there have to be a certain amount of actual medication in the medication? The FDA or whatever lets it be off a little bit, but even generics and stuff.
Yeah, I was actually looking at that recently, and I couldn't find the numbers, actually. From memory, I thought it had to be 80%. 80 to 120, you know.
Yeah.
So, but I don't recall. I couldn't find a source that actually said that. That's just something that was in my mind. So you'd think at minimum there's 80% of the whatever the label says. Let's say you're talking about Adderall 20 milligram. I mean, you would still feel that.
Isn't that a big gap though? 80 to 120, like.
I guess it depends on the med, actually. Now that I say that. So for something like Adderall, it really wouldn't matter, I don't think.
Okay.
But for something like digoxin, which is a heart med, which is, you're talking only 100 micrograms, 80% of 100 micrograms, that's a, pretty big difference.
That's kind of one of those things where a lot of people say, certain generics don't work for them and name brand is what they need. And certain companies make a generic that doesn't work. That's we were researching that a while back just because a lot of people were saying generics just weren't working for them for Addies or whatever other medication. So I was wondering how true that was because I got very mixed results whenever we talked to a couple of doctors about that. Some said it was true. Others said it was like a smaller gap. And I don't know if it depends on where you're at, maybe.
I don't believe that's true at all. I think every generic is going to be fine. They have strict regulations that they have to meet. And there's, what you can say, or yes, I know people are going to say like one generic does better than the other and all this other stuff. And I just think that that's just a placebo kind of effect.
Right. So if you have a patient come to you and say like that I need the brand name. It's hard because if the doctor doesn't put brand name medically necessary written on the script, the insurance won't even go for that, correct?
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Right. And for
So
chronic pain patients, they have to have something written specific on the script. Chronic intractable pain, correct?
it depends on the state. There's so many dumb laws with that stuff. Like, in my state, if a physician assistant wrote a pain medicine, they had to write on there, I think under what was it? They had to write something stupid on it, like for chronic pain. If they forgot chronic, it's a completely invalid prescription. And if I filled it, I would get a fine.
Right.
And they would forget it all the time.
I used to live in Jersey and it used to have to say chronic intractable pain on the prescription.
Yeah, it's dumb. The idiots who make our laws don't know what they're doing. What were we talking about there? Oh yeah, the generic stuff. Yeah, if you want to specify a generic manufacturer or a brand manufacturer, we will do what we can, but that onus is probably going to be on you. And I'm telling you, it's going to be way more heartache than what it's worth. And yeah, it's not worth trying to get a brand name or specific manufacturer, in my opinion.
Is it harder to switch, like if you're going in to get your prescription filled and like the pharmacy didn't have a certain generic, whatever, so the pharmacist has to switch from one brand to another? Is that hard? I know sometimes whenever you're switching from like certain capsules to something else or whatever, it can be a little bit more difficult to actually get it approved.
No, between generics,
Okay. I wasn't sure.
The pharmacy orders what they're contracted with the wholesaler, and that changes. That can change month to month or whatever. It could be one manufacturer the next month. But no, they do that easily. If you want to specify, that gets very difficult, because then you got to like special order it and all this other stuff.
Now, talk about like Tylenol and ibuprofen and stuff like that. I know a lot of people with chronic pain aren't getting their pain adequately treated right now. Unfortunately, the DEA is involved in everything. A lot of people overtake these meds though, and that could how much Tylenol and ibuprofen can you really have in a day without hurting yourself long term?
Yeah, for Tylenol, the limit is 4,000 milligrams or 3,000, depending on who you talk to. But on the label, it's going to say 4,000. Mm-hmm. And anything over that, you put yourself at risk for having liver issues, because Tylenol does affect, how the liver functions. And
ibuprofen as well?
Ibuprofen, I think the limit's 3,200 milligram off the top of my head. And I don't think you're at risk for any liver issues with ibuprofen, but it can cause issues with bleeding and perhaps kidney as well.
What are some of the other medications that you can go into CVS or wherever to buy, and it is just not good? Like, it's not actually doing anything for you.
Oh, phenylephrine. That's
Really?
a new one, or well, not new really, but just recently, I believe the FDA put out a statement that said that oral phenylephrine does not work at all. It's a nasal decongestant.
Yep.
I think it's called I think the brand name is like Sudafed PE, I think is what it was. Doesn't do anything. It's a complete waste of money. Another one is Mucinex. Everybody loves Mucinex for some reason. Guaifenesin, which is the active ingredient, not really, doesn't do anything at all. That's been scientifically proven not to be effective. What we were talking about earlier, both of those are just so old. They've been around since the dawn of time, so that's why they're still being sold. All of those, they do nothing. I'd never take those ever myself.
What would you say would be best for like a nasal decongestion? Because that's a big one that a lot of people deal with, obviously. And I actually tried the one you were talking about, and I remember having that problem. Like, it actually stopped me up more just because I put crap into my nose. And
shame. Flonase did that to me.
Yeah.
For nasal decongestion, the Sudafed. Now that's not phenylephrine, that's Sudafed. It's a little bit different. You have to ask for that one at the pharmacy. Like, you have to get the pharmacy staff to get it. That one's really good. But that's my favorite, really. Other than that, there's like a saline nasal spray that is really good, in my opinion. I mean, it's not really a drug per se. It just kind of cleans out your nose, but I think that works like even better a lot of the time, just getting the gunk out.
Right. Well, I really don't like Sudafed, because even if I only take the 4-hour ones or anything, I could take that first thing in the morning and I would be up like half the night.
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly right. That's a side effect of that one.
Yeah, it's horrible. I remember the first couple of times I took the 12 hours, it was just, I was all types of fidgety, and it just messed me up.
Benadryl does that to me.
Yeah, that'll happen, like a kind of a paradoxical effect sometimes with Benadryl. Yeah.
Right.
What is the most, I guess it can present in a lot of different ways, but what's the most effective thing for like a common cold?
Oh my gosh, for a cold, you really can't do anything. That's the worst thing. Because that's been like the main thing people come into a pharmacy and ask me about. You really can't do anything. You just have to wait for it to pass. You can take things like Tylenol to help with the fever and the pain a little bit. You can try a nasal spray to help with your nose, or if it's runny, you can try an antihistamine or something like that. But to actually cure the common cold, you really can't do anything. You just have to wait. And nobody wants to hear that as an answer.
Because everyone wants instant gratification when they walk into a pharmacy.
Yeah, they do.
Right.
Is it worth taking something like mega dosing on vitamin C or something? Is all that worth it and may kick it out a little bit faster? Or
I don't know off the top of my head. I would have to look at that. I don't know.
What about things like Imodium? What are your thoughts on that? Is there like a generic at the dollar store that's equivalent to Imodium? Or
yeah, there is. I think I have a video coming up about that here soon.
Okay.
Yeah, they're generic Imodium, loperamide. I used it personally, and it didn't really help. But I think, I don't remember if the Dollar Tree version worked or not. I used it a long, long time ago. It didn't really help me. But
okay.
I don't know. It's there. It's a thing. So I have it in Canada. I saw it when I was in Canada the other day.
What about like I see in the dollar store? Because I'm a mom. I frequent that section, the med section. What about like athlete's foot cream and stuff like that? That's way more expensive at other stores, but it's cheaper there.
Athlete's foot cream. Okay. I have some.
I do
somewhere.
too, actually, somewhere.
Clotrimazole, the 1%.
Yes.
That's like one of their better products. If we're talking about best Dollar Tree products, that's up there.
Right. I think so too.
Oh,
and it's so much cheaper because it's so much more expensive at like Walmart and Target. It's the same thing pretty much.
Yep.
Right?
Yep, exactly. I've used the Dollar Tree version. I can swear that definitely works.
Yeah.
With the decongestants and everything, I remember you made a video too about it obviously being really you can become really dependent on it just because otherwise, like if you take it 5, 6, 7 days consistently, whatever, it messes up your nasal passages and stuff like that. Are there any decongestants that you can use more regularly without them causing like the addiction dependent, anything like that?
I don't know, but I'm going to find out here soon because.
What about Flonase?
I don't think Flonase does anything, honestly.
I don't think it does either. I'm always prescribed it, and it's like.
They like to prescribe that one a lot, don't they?
Right, right.
I don't think that does anything. The one you're referring to is Afrin.
Yeah.
I mean, you can become dependent on that. Whenever I was in Canada, I saw a similar decongestion that we don't have here in the United States. I forgot to buy it though, and I'm so mad at myself. But I remember what it was called. It was called xylometazoline. And one of the questions I had is like, oh, is this associated less with dependency than maybe our Afrin? And I don't know. I plan on finding out. But right now, I don't know. I don't know if there's any that don't cause that risk, other than like the saline nasal spray I mentioned earlier.
Right. Because that was one thing I know one of my buddies back whenever I was in high school, he got like stuck on the Afrin for a while because it's like if he didn't use it, he would just get so stopped up all of a sudden he wouldn't function. So it was bad. He was using that for weeks and weeks and weeks. And he literally needed it beforehand because he was having so many nasal issues. But it was like there is nothing that is consistent in that regard. Or I guess, are there medications you can get from your doctor? I'm sure there are some that can help with that. But is there anything really, really effective?
I mean, the Sudafed I mentioned earlier, but I mean, that has its own host of problems as well.
Right.
I feel like my kids are always prescribed for allergies. It starts with a C, I think.
Claritin?
One of those. And it's always, but I feel like that doesn't even do anything really. What do you think about stuff like that?
Is it a pill?
Yes. Could it be sertraline? Is that something?
No, not for allergies. That wouldn't be allergies.
I'm losing my.
I don't know. The allergies thing, I think sometimes get prescribed just because they don't want to deal with you or.
Right. That's what I was feeling.
Yep.
Like, just keep prescribing this and nothing changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had one, Marie knows. So I had a cough for, I don't know, it was like 5 months to start, and then it went away for a month and a half, and then it came back for like 4 months or so. And at first, my doctor and I thought it was because like allergies in the winter, because that's when it first started. And I was like, I really don't think that's it. But she was like, once winter's about to start, we're going to get you on some allergy meds. So it went away April, May, and then just went away last month. And it was like, it's obviously not the winter allergies or whatever you think it is. Mm-hmm. So what the heck is it? And I kind of felt like she didn't have an answer for me, or it was something that wasn't fixable. So that was her answer. Because I think the little flap that goes in your throat there, I think for some reason it's getting like mucus and liquid and all types of buildup. And that is causing problems because it's like staying open. I don't know.
Okay. I have to get going here, guys.
You're good.
We're all good. Right. We appreciate your time, though. And I can't wait to check out some more of your future videos.
Thank you. I love being here. This is fun.
Sure, man.
Reach out to me and I'll try to help you with whatever that med was.
Absolutely.
I would love to help you if I can.
No problem. Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, guys.